welcome to another edition of The Coaching Hour, brought to you in partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. Nice to have you here. My name is Paul Rotherham, and I'm joined by my colleagues and dear friends. Well, one of these ladies is actually my mother-in-law. That would be Mary and Mareka. Ladies, I hope you're well and warm.
Yep.
Wonderful. Nice to have you with us as we bring you what we hope is going to be another informative and insightful chat with a guest. We bring a guest to you pretty much every week here on the Coaching Hour, where we chat with coaches who are working in the coaching space, all of them vastly different, all of them working in slightly different fields with a totally different skill set. And who are we chatting with and getting to know a little bit better today, Mareka?
Yes, thank you, Paul. It is a privilege for us to have Esme Witbooi with us today. It's been quite some time that we've been trying to kind of collaborate our calendars, but it's so nice to have you, Esme. She's the director of Rediscover Me Coaching, as her beautiful background, is saying. So welcome, Esme. It's so nice to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Marika, Mary, and Paul. I'm very excited about our meeting today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Before we get into our topic for today, and Esme is also an author, and we'll touch on that also. What was your journey like, becoming a coach? How did you get, into this space?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. I think, Marika, it was about in 2010, I found myself in London. I relocated, and something within me, I've traveled and I've been around the world, hopping from one country to another. It was a very exciting journey, but somehow deep inside me, I felt unfulfilled with all of the different countries and the different roles I've been working in. And I was looking, and really it was seriously just, I wasn't able to give expression to my core values in what I was doing. And then came across coaching, and that gave me that kind of platform to express my core values. And I really connected. I found myself when I found coaching. I'm like, this is me. This is what I'm called to do. It resonated so deeply with my core values that when I coach, I don't even feel like I'm working, although it's work. And that's how in 2010 in London, where everything started in life making sense for me.
And you also branded your coaching, companies Rediscover Me, and that's what we want to talk about today is how to rediscover, ourselves. But why did you choose that specific name for your brand? Why is that so close to your heart?
Very, very, very good question, Marika. I think it was maybe 3 years ago or so where I spiritually went on a journey with myself and asking deeper questions. Seeing that I've been coaching for over 12, 13 years at that time, I asked myself, so what is it that clients really deeply gain out of the coaching experience with me? So I've read through all of my reviews and feedback from clients, and they all were saying the same thing. They all were saying, I was rediscovering myself. I feel, brand new again, and I'm energized again. And it was just a trend and a centralized theme. And one time in the afternoon, I was sitting. I asked myself these deeper questions. As you're niching yourself as a coach, what is it that I allow the coachees to get out of the coaching experience?
Mm.
And it really came down to rediscovering themselves. And the re is a very important theme that goes before the discovery. As we say, coaching is about
Yes.
discovering yourself. Yes. And that is how Rediscover Me concept came about. It was merely based on what the clients, their takeaway was from the coaching experience.
Okay, so your clients actually started to define and made you realize, what you mean to them and the purpose that you serve. So when we talk about rediscover, everybody that's listening or watching today and they are not sure who they really are and where to start, if you can guide us a bit, in terms of this journey, or maybe if you want to share your own story of, rediscovering maybe yourself.
Yes, Marika, when we talk about rediscovering, it's life as we're going through life, we're going through life's journey in seasons.
Mm,
There's different seasons in our life, different phases in our life span as human beings. And during those phases, we give sort of expression to our values in different ways, in different forms, depending on what that season is bringing for us at that time. And during those seasons, emotionally significant events happen, which is asking us maybe to reshape, re-question, and re-express our values and beliefs. And in that, somehow we lose along the way the things that really matters to us, that's really important to us. Because in that season, you give a different expression of yourself. And in that time, the longer you are not expressing what's important to you, it tends to become dormant. It tends to become forgotten. It tends to become ignored. And what we are not ignored and forgotten after a while time, it tends to fade away.
mm,
And then we found ourselves, we have become something else, or we are not happy anymore. When people come for coaching, there's an unpleasant um, event or situation in their lives. So as the seasons of life evolve, Rediscover Me is really about, because clients here used to say to me, I am more happier than I used to be. So what was it at that time that you feel is missing? So when you come for something that's missing, that means something was there already, and therefore you feel something is missing. So Rediscover Me is about that journey. Let's go back in time. And what was it that you felt is missing now that was there before? Maybe you've lost your energy along the way. Maybe you've lost drive along the way. Maybe you're not as creative as you used to be.
mm,
Maybe you have lost your passion. Maybe you have lost the rhythm that you used to operate on. Maybe you have lost not giving expression to your core values that you used to be, that is making you feel stuck, unhappy. So Rediscover Me really is about regaining back that you feel
mm,
you've lost along the way, regaining back that drive, that energy, that passion, or maybe that dream that you've lost along the way. And that's the journey that I take my clients on. And that's why we say it's rediscovering yourself. It's about regaining back that was lost, forgotten, or even stolen.
I guess the large component of this, Esme, is freeing up time. Because if I think about my own life, and in fact, if I look around me, I would say the biggest common denominator for many people in this modern life that we live is a lack of time. We always seem to be chasing the clock.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We seem to be chasing a clock. And what we're doing during the process of Rediscover Me is that when you go on a journey and you realize what is most important to you, you regain your time because your focus becomes different. Because somewhere along the way, we just get busy in the busyness of life, and maybe we live in dreams that was never ours, goals, chasing outcomes that was never ours originally. It was just imposed maybe in our upbringing via our background, our culture, the environment that you currently find yourself in. But when you truly give expression to what's most important to you, you regain time.
There's an expression about us all going through our midlife crisis, and I was reading an interesting article the other day saying, given the average age of humans on the planet, which is around 72 to 75, our midlife crisis is actually happening at around 36, 37. It's not this
Mm.
midlife crisis of, oh, I've just hit 50. In your experience, Esme, is there an age at which people start having this realization that there's something missing?
Wow, very good question. I found in my coaching experience, it's sort of starting to happen maybe, in the mid-30s. That's when the deeper question comes to people in life. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? In terms of redefining themselves. I coach a lot of clients older than myself, and they are in their 50s, maybe even 60s, and they discover themselves at that age. But usually in your mid-30s, when you've had quite maybe over a decade worth of work, you start to ask those deeper questions in life.
And how long does it take? I mean, obviously, you can't give us a taste of your coaching session now. Well, I suppose you are. Just in talking to us, you're giving us a sense of what you do. But how long does it take to rediscover me, would you say?
The journey is really entirely up to the client themselves, based on, how they would like the coaching to expedite. But in coming, I would say, with the kind of assessment tools that I use and the kind of program that I use, usually in the maybe third or fourth session, maybe in the some in the second session, even if they are very aggressive with their personal development. But usually in third, fourth session, with assessment tools that I use, people start to come to terms with, and I really always start with values. Values are really, really that deeply core motivations and drivers behind why we think and feel and act a certain way. Once you get into that with a client, they start to becoming alive.
Mm.
Esme,
Uh,
yes, Mary.
Esme, the core values you're talking about, can you give us examples of core values for different seasons and different times in a person's life?
Yeah, in terms of core values, that's a very important question. People have different values that they seem to be finding important for them. And part of these values were formed when we were, in terms of values that were imposed to us by our parents, our upbringing, which could,
Like what? Give examples. Give examples.
it could, yeah. So, for example, when, let's say, your grandmother has taught you that vulnerability is let's a weakness, then you start to value in life, it's not important to be vulnerable. I have to be strong and in control. So you value that, based on what was given to you in your background. Another example of values can be significant if your parents brought you up in a very spiritual background. That become the foundation of your values as a person. Then you get those values that are imposed onto you. Then you get values that you are making important to you based on what you want to become. Um, and those are your aspirational values that come into play based on what you want to become. Then you get seasons in life. So these values, they never change really. They're always there, but we just give different expressions to them in different seasons of our lives. Maybe you value achievement, and then maybe you go through a season of life where achievement is in your working context, making targets, meeting the numbers. And then there comes a season in your life where there's a emotional significant event happening, where your wife or your partner or child gets diagnosed with an illness. And maybe at that time, even though your core value is achievement, maybe at that time, being present for them, being there, you give expression to that value in a different way based on the season that you are in. But that value has never gone away. It's just being expressed in a different way, in a different form. And that becomes your achievement then. So our values take different forms over different seasons in our lives, but really they remain the core. They do. They really do. I hope I've answered your question, Mary.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, thank you.
So Isma, talking about seasons, and I assume, there's different aspects of one's life, there's career and relationship and so forth. But when we talk about seasons, it's usually those periods of our life that we want to avoid, because we don't want those periods where it feels like things, is I don't know, dying or things are changing. We don't like, in general, people don't like change. How can a person maybe change their perspective around those seasons, rather than avoiding it, to embrace it and use it as an opportunity to rediscover themselves? Because most people are not really consciously aware that, let me take this, as an opportunity for growth. We just don't want to be in those uncomfortable situations. We want to find ways to get out of it. Yeah, how can one change that perspective, perhaps?
I always do an exercise with the clients. Let's say nobody likes the unpleasant situation, but once you go on a journey and you see the perspective that needs to change, one thing that's very important when it comes to coaching is the changing of perspective. Is you see, like when you stand on this side, it's like the six, if you're at the top of the building. And I think this is where coaching comes in, and why coaching is such an amazing, brilliant process is because what we do as coaches, we use the skill of coaching to help a client see the situation from different perspectives. When you stand on the top of a building, you see a different view on the floor 8. If you come down to floor ground,
It's a bit frozen.
so
You,
okay.
okay, you were
Yes,
in your sentence of going down to the ground floor, yes?
yes, in the ground floor. So you see these different perspectives. So
Okay.
so so as the client is seeing those different perspectives, and a coach takes them on that journey of seeing different perspectives based on, very importantly, what we as coaches do is allowing client to see the outcomes. There's an outcome. So what I usually do is I make sure that I always get an outcome. What is it that you're after? What is it that you want? Even if it's that pleasant situation, yes, that's what you want. Okay. Now this is where you're currently at. And these are the different perspectives that the coach brings to the table of how a client is seeing that situation. But once there's an outcome in mind, which is very important, because that's what coaching is really about. We always create that future outcome picture of what the client, and you wave it in front of the client in your sessions, that is deeply connected to that value that they give an expression to. Usually then, they are able to then shift their
Yeah.
perspective, but that comes through that outcome. It's really important that the program is driven by outcome.
I like that
What
way that you explained that. Yeah, that's definitely the outcome that's important.
It's very important, and I coach mentor students and coaching supervise, and it's very important. I always point out to them that coaching is about that outcome. Otherwise, the session can be sitting on a counseling where we are just staying in the past and repeating. We do go and touch the past based on move forward,
mm,
but you gotta, in the beginning of that program, get what is it that you really, really, really want, and make sure that is connected to a value. And then once that is very clear, a client is able, you keep that futuristic outcome that they want. And usually you then challenge them during the session with inviting them through really good skills in changing the perspective that we are really initially in charge of choosing what we choose to believe
mm.
in. But usually I get a shift once I bring that into the focus.
So people listening right now to this, and they feel so overwhelmed and stuck in their current situation, and they can't see any way out of it. What advice do you have for them to start, the process, to get away from, feeling so stuck in that situation?
Sometimes you can really, really feel very stuck in a situation, but what I always want to point out and focus, if you're feeling stuck right now where you are in your life, I've been there too myself. And sometimes you are so deeply, deeply down in there, and it becomes very challenging to lift yourself up. But I want to invite you to ask yourself, and this is where I like the rediscovery. Think about the time, at the time, way, way, way back. What did you do when you felt stuck? What did you say to yourself when you felt stuck? What did you believe at that time when you felt stuck that got you going again? Sometimes we really forget. We forget. We forget that we have the resources within ourselves to lift and pull ourselves up. Don't forget the strengths that you had way back. Don't forget that feeling of excitement you used to have way back. What did you do at that time when you felt stuck? Regain those resources. Use it. Use it. Tap into it in order to lift yourself up. We do forget sometimes. So I want to encourage you. Think about the time when you did feel stuck. You got out of it, right? Yes, you did. So use that same energy, use that same, what did you think? What did you believe? What did you say to yourself? And what did you do? Do it again.
Wise words indeed. I do think as well, Esme, that as life progresses and we become older and hopefully wiser, the things that did make us happy might change. So I think I've learned in my own life, one has to be very careful about hanging on to the past, thinking that, oh, I used to do this for a living, or I used to have this type of lifestyle, or I used to do this sort of sport, even, where we do change as humans. Obviously, I understand the concept of our principles and values. Ultimately, we do remain true to those. But if I look back on my life, there are things now in my early 50s that I'm doing that give me great joy that I hadn't even thought about when I was in my 30s. And conversely, there are things that I was doing in my 30s where now if you said, "Hey Paul, would you like to do this?" Hell no. I've grown past that. So I do think that there is a season for everything. And
Mm.
sometimes you do need to be careful about living too much in the past, thinking that those things would still make you happy today because you're a different person. Well, hopefully, you're a different person now to the person you were many years ago or even several months ago. So, that for me would be just some perspective on not holding on too tightly to the things that you think make you who you are because you might be wrong.
Yeah, a very, very good perspective for when we're speaking about resources, accessing your resources from the past. We're talking about mental and emotional resources. You know what I mean? We're talking about your mental. What did you think? What did you believe at that time? Many a times I find clients who come to me and they are stuck. So when you were stuck, what did you think at that time? Okay, when we say, you know, I used my spirituality used to be up there. That's a resource you can access right now. I used to, pray a lot. I used to do this. I used to exercise, and that gave me the capacity. You know what I mean? So I used to be creative in painting. That gives me a sort of expression. So we're talking about those mental and emotional resources that you can reactivate by changing your perspective, and then it gives you the motivation and the drive. Those motivations and drivers mentally and emotionally, and that helps you to access your resources so that you can function even better at this time. So I found once you make someone tap into what really motivates them, something, they become alive again. I think for me, it's my spirituality. Once I access that resource, I become unstoppable. So those tapping into those, yeah, again, values. Values just is everywhere. Values is sticking out everywhere. Tapping into those resources that makes you feel alive. That usually really, really works. Once I allow my clients to go back into that place that makes them feel alive and it's connected to a core value, that they are not prepared to compromise in any way, they start to become alive again.
So if someone listening now, Esme, would like to become, as you've put it, alive again and rediscover themselves, what do they need to do to reach out to you?
I am available on the website. You can make an inquiry on www.rediscoverme.time.com. I'm available there for any questions that they so may have. I've got a lot of free resources that I give those access to, which is a free ebook on unstoppable confidence. It's really giving you and it's for free, a step-by-step workbook that helps you to regain your confidence back and just change the way you are thinking. I also have a chatbot, which is an interactive chatbot that helps people, with self-awareness. So yes, I am foundable on social media as well. And yes, reach out.
Wonderful. And just to confirm, that is rediscoverme.com, was that?
Yes, correct.
100%.
Rediscovermetime.com.
I beg your pardon, rediscovermetime.com.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Rediscovermetime.com. Wonderful. Well, it's been quite insightful and gives us things to think about and chew on, which I think is the goal really and the aim for us when we deliver these coaching hours. So thank you very much for being a part of today's podcast, Esme. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Marika, Paul, and Mary. It was awesome to share this time with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Remember, if you are watching this on the social media sites, please leave your comments, suggestions, questions that you might have. And of course, if you are in the coaching space and you would like to perhaps feature on the coaching hour, then you can reach out to Marika and we could be chatting with you as our guest sometime soon. That wraps up this edition of the Coaching Hour, brought to you in partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. Thanks for joining us.